how is that going to be linked to Messiah? Messiah, what does the word Messiah mean? What does the word Christ mean? Christ simply means Messiah. Messiah or Mashiach means the anointed one with what? With olive oil. From the olive tree. Messiah is linked to the olive tree because, first of all, he is the anointed one, the olive. And notice where he would hang out, the Mount of Olives, where he's coming back, Mount of Olives. Where was he praying the night before his death? Gethsemane, the place of the olives. But here the vision to Zechariah, and that's representing the Spirit of God. From the olive tree comes the olive oil. From the tree of Messiah, the cross, comes the Spirit of God poured out. And so the vision comes to Zerubbabel saying, don't be discouraged. Don't be overcome by the mountain, by the obstacle in front of you. You are anointed, and my Spirit will flow through you, and my purposes will be accomplished through you. For what can stop my purposes, says the Lord? But it will not be by your might or your power or the power of Israel. It'll be by my Spirit that this mountain that has so long hindered you will be removed. And what you were called to do, you will fulfill. What you began, you will finish. By my Spirit and by my grace, it will be done. God is saying, I don't want to, you laid the foundation and I want you to finish it. God doesn't want to give up. He could have given up on Israel and started another nation, but that's not the nature of God. The nature of God is something breaks, he's going to fix it. I want it to be finished. I want the one who I called to finish what I called them to do. You may be someone who's totally broken, totally messed up, totally blown it, and God still says, my calling is without revoking. I want you to finish the calling I gave you. It will come through Zerubbabel by his hard work and sweat, but it will be by God's Spirit and grace. They will go together. The Lord is telling Zerubbabel, you've got a calling, you've got a promise. Stop being discouraged and get up and get back to work and finish that temple. So in Ezra it records what happened. Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Yeshua, or Joshua, the son of Josadak, arose and began to rebuild the house of God, which is in Jerusalem, and the prophets of God were with them, supporting them. Zerubbabel, Yeshua, or Joshua there, rebuilding around them, Zechariah, Haggai, encouraging them. They arose, they began to rebuild. God is in the prophets. God is the one who's encouraging them. He's the one, he's the encourager. God's the God of all encouragement. The enemy is the God of all discouragement. God's the God of all encouragement. And now the word here of the olive tree, the message, the Menorah prophecy has also to do with you and us. You have a calling, you have a purpose on your life. God gives that. I'm not talking about your own plans. I'm not talking about your own ambitions. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what God has for your life. The plan and the calling that's from God. If you're in God, if you're a child of God, you've got a calling from God. If you're not in God, God is calling you, and then you'll know your calling. If your life is out of God's will, you can't take the promise here until you get it right back in God's will. God cannot bless and will not bless what's not in his will. The promise is not for that. The promise is not for selfishness. The promise is for God's will. Get it back. Get it in. Get your life in God's will. Then take the promise. The promise is for you. But you have to be in that will. That whatever the sin is, sin hinders you from the calling of God. So see the sin, see any sin that you're dealing with or given into as something that is and will hinder you from that calling. So get in the will of God first, number one. But in being now in the will of God, there is a promise for you. But in the will of God, they were in the will of God, there will be obstacles. The idea that if something's of God, there will be no obstacles, not true at all. There'll be peace deep inside, but it's not necessarily on the outside, and sometimes not even always on the inside in your emotions. You may not always have it, but deep down, if it's of God, there's a peace. But on the outside, if it is God's will, you will have resistance. You'll have distractions, you'll have discouragements, you'll have apathy sometimes, you'll have substitutes, temptations from God's will. You'll have events come against, you'll have wrong turns, you'll have frustrations. Will be easy to get discouraged. And maybe that's you. Maybe God called you and there was something there. It was of God, or you never followed through with it, or you got sidetracked, or something came up and you gave up. Something came up, something hit your life, and you became discouraged, you became embittered, or you kept a distance between you and God, or you messed up so much you just said there's no hope, or you got weary of doing good. God is speaking to you now to encourage. First, the word comes through a prophet named Zechariah, which means, so here to you, this word comes from Zechariah, meaning God has not forgotten the calling on your life. God has not forgotten his love to you. God has not forgotten his promise to you. God has not forgotten your good works or your zeal of your devotion of those days. God has not forgotten your prayers. Every prayer you prayed from a sincere heart, he's got it. He said to Cornelius, the angel said, your prayers have ascended to God as a memorial. God memorializes the prayers. He's not forgotten. And his word to you is, not by might, not by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord. I will accomplish my purposes in you. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Same people, the exiles of Israel said that word to them as well. I know the plans I have for you. Plans for, not for calamity, but to give you a future and a hope. Plans for shalom. I know the plans the enemy has hindered. I know the plans you've hindered. I know the high and the holy calling that I gave you. But those plans won't be accomplished by the flesh. They can't be accomplished if you dwell in the flesh. They won't be accomplished by your strength. They won't be accomplished by your means or the ways of the world. They will be accomplished by my Ruach HaKodesh. My purposes, your calling, can only be brought about by the Spirit of God. There may have been many setbacks.